So, yeah, 1, 2. Here we are. Hello, guys, and welcome to another live stream. This time around, it's not going to be a beat review. It's not going to be anything like that. I'm not going to make music. You know, nothing like that. But we're going to hang out for this little live stream session. Totally out of focus. Now, let's get in focus. Let's get in focus. We don't need that one over there. Like so. Okay. So I've decided, I've made up my mind, and I've kind of made the decision and decided that we're going to do live streams every single Monday. The same time, the same place, the same channel. Every other week we're going to do beat reviews, listening to music from people in the community, talking about them, giving feedback, all that stuff. And every other week I'm doing something else. Whatever I want to do. It's going to be a lot of music making. I'm going to make a lot of beats on these every other Monday kind of live streams. Today, I just want to hang out. And hang out with kind of a theme. The theme being the NAMM Show 2026. The NAMM Show is coming up in a couple of days. Today is the 12th, and it starts at the 20th. So in about a week, the NAMM Show goes live. If you don't know, the NAMM Show, if you don't know what the NAMM Show is, it's pretty much a huge music fair in California somewhere. And I'm not going, just got to point that out immediately here. I'm not going to NAMM because it's not, it just doesn't make financial sense to go. Pretty much. I can't afford it. No one's paying me to go. I don't have any sponsor lineup and whatever. So, no, I'm not going to NAMM. Instead, I've taken a look at a few leaks and some stuff, and I just think this is a cool time and a place to talk about it, on this live stream. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Gonna be hanging out with the chat room and just talking about potential things that's gonna be launched. Some stuff that's already been leaked, maybe. Some stuff that's been teased and whatever. And, normally I don't make a lot of content about stuff like that. But this time around, it definitely makes sense. Because there's a lot of cool stuff coming. And I'm excited. I am. Just gotta get into my web browser over here and set some stuff up. How are you guys doing tonight? What? How are you guys doing? I'm pretty fine. I've been, I had this really long holiday break over the Christmas, and then I got back to work 2 days last week, and today was my first proper day at my new old position, whatever, at work. So I am a little bit beat up, and I think it makes sense to do a live stream like this, just hanging out, talking about stuff, talking about gear, figuring out what could come and what's not going to come and what people think about it. It's NAMM. It's not me making music, right? That's what I'm saying. It's going to be about NAMM. It's going to be about gear. It's going to be about synthesizers and drum machines and leaks and samplers and all that good stuff. All the stuff I find fun to talk about. B-Boy Mac 84 says MPC XL at NAMM. That could be something. Dirty 1200, I guess 100 different Behringer stuff that will come in 4 to 5 years. Well, I don't talk a lot about Behringer. For reasons. What's doubling? Is the audio doubling? Help me out. The audio might be kind of feedbacking on itself. In that case, I kind of know what to do, but help me out. Is the quality okay? Video, audio, whatever? I do think I need to give that light right there just a little bit more oomph. Hey. Beat Platoon says some AI for sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's just the times we live in these days. There's going to be AI stuff. But you know me, I'm more interested in actual hardware and devices than I am with software. A lot of software is doing a lot of AI stuff already, but you know, getting some kind of synthesizer or sound generating rack unit or whatever with AI, I could see that happening. But I wouldn't be excited about it. I haven't talked much. I keep referring to me and what I do as we or us. There's no team. It's just me. I don't talk a lot about AI stuff because I find it scary and I don't like it when it comes to this part of my creative life. We might have to get into that someday, but whatever. Let's start with that question to you guys. We have some people in the chat room. Let me just start with that question real quick. What are you guys excited to see? There has been a few leaks and some rumors and stuff, and I'm not read up on everything, of course not. So if anyone has anything specific they're looking forward to, please mention that in the chat room so we can follow along and trying to look for things. A lot of people are talking about the MPC XL. And of course, people are talking about the MPC XL. I can see why, because there's been a lot of leaked photos and also some specs and stuff. Let's get into that in a little bit, but yeah, it's something to be excited about for real. And Akai has pretty much made that for every single release they've made. They're leaking something, or something is leaking before the launch. If that's on purpose or not, I'm not sure. I don't know more than anyone else does, actually, in this case. So a part of me thinks that, yeah, we have a few different photos of the box and the actual unit and everything. So I think that's more of a leak than a rumor or speculation. I think it lies something in it, you know. Remember the April Fool's modular device from Machine last year we shared? Yeah. You sent that to me, and I kind of fell for it, even though I shouldn't. Carbon Vibes is doing great. I'm doing great too. As I said, I'm a bit tired and beat up, but I'm doing great. It's also super cold in Sweden, so I should have like mittens and stuff. Interested in seeing what the Akai. Benjamin Button says the Slate VSX immersion one. I don't know what that is. We gotta look that up. I said mine, a proper hardware granular synth. I have one by 1010, but I love one with a keyboard. I'm curious if Machine will drop anything new. Yeah, me too. I mean, getting a new device from Native Instruments would have been cool. For real. I'm gonna be killed for this, but the last good MPC is the MPC 2000 XL. Later in music killed the MPC. I don't agree, but I can see where you're coming from and I understand how you're thinking like that. It makes sense, but I'm a big fan of the Live 3, for instance, and also the Key 37. I like the new generation MPCs a lot. Hannibal Actor says, I'm always excited for new gear either way. Yeah, me too. I mean, both as someone who makes quote-unquote content on gear and music technology, it's an exciting time. You know, NAMM always brings something kind of cool. And even if it's not something cool that I get to kind of dive into myself, I'm just watching videos like anyone else on the different things and, you know, learning about the specs and understanding what's coming up. I think that's exciting. I've become really like stuck in my ways of using this MPC Live together with my hardware synths and whatever. But maybe like a new, more experimental kind of drum machine, that would be cool. Or in my setup, there are things I'm kind of looking for and I want to get into. I want a 19-inch compressor for instance, a rack-mounted compressor. I really want that. And I would love a real big polyphonic, preferably analog synthesizer. I don't have that. The Alpha Theta Serato slab will be there. Of course it will. Of course that will be there. And, the Alpha Theta stuff is kind of cool on the DJ part of things, of course. But the Serato slab also looks kind of impressive for what it is. But for what it is the key ingredient in that sentence, because it is a USB controller for the Serato Studio software, which is cool. It's a great piece of software, and if that hardware controller is good, that's great. More power to anyone who uses it. But I'm not that interested in getting the Serato slab for some reason. Doesn't feel like it makes sense. In that case, maybe for covering it in a video or something. But I don't know. Alesis 3630. Well, you know what? We're actually gonna... I'm trying to mix things up, Bear with me. I'm gonna try to... how do I want to do this? I think that would be something that makes sense. Maybe not for you, but for me. So I'm gonna add... Yeah, this is gonna take me a bit because I'm stupid. macOS screen capture, display capture, the built-in Retina show cursor. Okay, that's something. That's not the right window. Yes, it is. It's that window. Let's go to Google. Cool. I should have done this in beforehand. I know. I should have prepared this, but I didn't. And that's what it is. And there are buttons for cropping. So let's crop it like that. Crop it like it's hot. Boom. Who cares? Let's do something like that. So, welcome to Google. Welcome to Google. And then I'm gonna take that one, put that over there. Almost. Crop. I really should have done this before stream. But whatever. That's me. That's your boy Accurate. Does that? No, that doesn't make sense. Something like that, I guess. Now it looks like I'm actually live streaming. What's your opinion of an external device like the touchpad for a mouse usage in machine for piano roll editing? Maybe be a part of a reasonable device released like the Machine Studio, this time from ANI. What are you saying? An external device like a touchpad or something for a mouse usage in machine for piano roll? Like on the hardware, on the machine hardware, having some way to move a cursor to edit MIDI notes on the piano roll? I've never really thought about that. I'm not in love with that idea. Akai went for the touch interface, and I think that makes a lot of sense for editing MIDI notes on the piano roll. Having an external mouse or a trackpad to do kind of something similar. It's not a terrible idea. It doesn't appeal to me immediately. It doesn't feel like something I would be excited to use. But it would enhance the experience of doing that kind of work on the machine. For sure. It would. Not sure how I feel about it though. I think there would be issues with the resolution of the actual hardware screen on the Machine Plus to actually move a cursor and get the latency to work and the resolution and everything. If they got it to work flawlessly and it feels like a computer, I can't say that it's bad, but I don't think I would love it. Editing MIDI notes on the piano roll is one of the most cumbersome things to do on machine. So having a way to do it, make it easier would make sense, but as a kind of external controller, I'm not sure. A fun idea, but I'm not sure it would be actually effective, you know? Now we want to take this one, this scene, that's going to be that one, and this is not going to be that one. So I'm gonna set another scene up in OBS. Camera, that's that one. Okay, cool. So let's uncrop it. I could do this in so many more effective and smart ways, but again, I'm stupid. Which is totally fine. Proud to be stupid. So now we can easily switch between this one and that one. This one. That one. This one. That one. This one. That one. Sounds like a song by a prof. What are you saying? Maybe Pioneer recently got a Maniac in charge. Okay. I hope Akai has an update for the MPK MIDI keyboards. It's been overdue. I haven't followed that, but it sounds like it makes sense. Any recommendations for a DJ controller? Shouldn't cost more than 300 euros. I keep hearing good things about the FLX2, right? FLX. I think it's called Flex or FLEX. Flex or Flex. That version of a controller, I think it's kind of inexpensive too. I wish we could get a Stanton STX Mark II. I want to get into vinyl scratching. Yeah, do you need a Stanton STX for that though? Not sure. I don't know why Pioneer would change their name. Well, it is what it is. I shared some stuff in Discord studio photos. Huh. The studio version is more rough. Let's call it... Oh, I can't follow along. You're writing too much. Do you think there's a correlation between Alchemist's output the last 15 years and the fact that he hasn't switched from the MPC 2500? Well, of course it is. I mean, if you're really comfortable using a certain device and a specific tool, and you're really effective and good at it, and you kind of know everything about it, keep working on it and just improve your actual beat making skills. That's what he did, and of course it has affected his output. He makes a lot of beats, a lot of great beats, a lot of, the Alfredo 2 project. There's definitely a correlation. Am I like that though? No. I'm switching between devices all the time. Yeah. Because I'm a YouTuber? No. Also because I'm just in love with this kind of technology. A nice idea, I think, is a DAW that can connect to another DAW, for example, Cubase and Reason. Yeah, Cubase and Reason used to work really well together with a rewire system, I think. You could do like sequencing in both of them and everything just synced up and whatever. That was cool. But that was at a point in time where Reason didn't have all the functionality that Cubase had, and Cubase didn't have all the functionality that Reason had. So it kind of made sense. These days, what two DAWs would you want to combine that would make sense? I guess like the time stretching kind of automatic algorithms in Serato Sample or Serato Studio in that case, but you could just run Serato Sample in your DAW and that, mic quality is so good. I read mic quality is no good and it says so good. That's good to hear. Thank you. Machine is built as an instrument, so staying into muscle memory is the point. What's your thought about the touchscreen in Akai? Can it be worked with eyes closed? Well, my answer to that is a flat out no. You can't use the entire system in the MPC Live 3, for instance, without using the touchscreen at all. So you kind of need to use your eyes for that. In the beginning of me using these MPCs, I kind of didn't like I pretty much hated the idea of using a touchscreen whatsoever. And I got used to it, and now I can't really see a way around it. You would need so many buttons, so many different sliders and different things to zoom in and navigate the entire system without ever having to touch the touch screen. It would be kind of a dream, because I'm still not a fan of the workflow of having to look at what I do. I prefer, as you're saying, understanding and developing a muscle memory and just going ham. That's better, but it is what it is. Using this MPC without using the touchscreen is pretty much impossible. You can do some workarounds here and there, but well. You can share the images on Facebook for feedback. Maybe I will. Discord. Don't switch. Where are they? On the Discord. Seems totally empty. No, someone sent me no. Okay, let's see. Studio photos. Okay, cool. So it's this one again. Native. Oh, you can see that. My bad. It's that one again. The Native Instruments Machine Live Plus for Machine Plus, with this whole added thing over here. I mean, this is a joke. I just need to point that out. This is a joke. This is not real. This has been a thing for like over a year. This is an edition that doesn't exist. It looks kind of fun. I think it does. Is it 100% believable? No. Why can't I can. And there were some other photos too. Now I can't open Discord, because that's now Discord. Okay, my bad. Expandability for the I/O. Can you imagine if this was a real thing? You have to plug this one in to a machine on the back. Everything just into the inputs and outputs. And then you have that one attached. Kind of a fun idea, but who could see this? I kind of bought it at first, so I shouldn't say anything, but it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Even though it's kind of fun. Dual monitors is not the way I prefer using a computer. If you can tell. If you can't tell. May I ask where in Sweden you live? Yeah, not in detail, but think Gothenburg. Kind of. Maybe we should talk about AI. Yeah, or maybe we shouldn't. It looks beautiful. Dirty says whatever. You know what? I actually made this list thing in Notion, and I don't want to share that over there. That could be dangerous to show my entire Notion board on stream. Let's actually get started to talk about some real stuff. I have the prediction stuff over there, and that's the actual text. Okay, cool. It's not that I have a script for this, but I did a little bit of researching beforehand and wrote some stuff down. I mean, first of all, the Akai MPC XL. Let's get that one over with, just to make sure that we have talked about it somewhat. The MPC XL seems to be, I mean, it hasn't been confirmed. That's not what I'm saying. It's not a confirmed release, but the leaks, all of the leaks are pointing in the same direction to me. It seems like it could be a device that's going to release during NAMM or close to NAMM, right before, right after, who knows, maybe in February, I don't know anything. The photos and everything seems to be legit, I think, even though one of them was, 16 knobs, where I guess it should be 16. It's 17 instead of 16. That's AI for you. It is what it is. But what I think is even more fun now to think about, let's just pretend for a second that the MPC XL is happening and it's coming out soon-ish or whatever. What I think is interesting what I think is really interesting about the Akai stuff in the future is actually not the MPC XL, because that feels leaked to a point where we're gonna get it. We kind of know it now or later or whatever. But what else is gonna Akai do? What else are they gonna do? I think that's more fun. That's more of an intriguing kind of way to think about things, because they have the MPC Live 3, which is obviously a new kind of generation for the MPC system. The multifunctional pads and everything that's going on, the step sequencer, and it's better incorporated, or it works better with the MPC 3 software. It feels like it's made for that, so it makes sense. But they've also had the MPC 1 before and MPC Key versions. So who knows if we're going to see an MPC Key, this generation MPC Key, so MPC Key 2, 37, MPC Key 2, 61. That's not a naming scheme that kind of works at all, but you know what I'm saying. Rockwell says, I like my Live 3 way more than my X. Yeah, but that's not really comparable, To me, the MPC X is old by today's standards. The XSE was better and slightly upgraded and whatever, but everything we have in the Live 3 is so different and so new. It's such a huge step forward for the entire ecosystem. So if they keep dropping more MPCs, I just guess they're going to be kind of similar to the Live 3. The whole 4 corners on the pads thing, the MPC pads, they're not going to take that away from us. Maybe on a really cheap device now that I think about it, but I don't think that makes sense, So instead, what I'm seeing is more MPC units, different form factors and different price ranges and whatever, but with MPC pads, probably step sequencers, probably the touch slider. It feels like they've committed to that. Something like that. So I think something that would make a lot of sense to me is kind of the form factor of an MPC 1, but with the capabilities of the Live 3 or close to it. That would make sense. Maybe 6 gigs of RAM instead of 8. I don't know. Maybe something like that. And hold on. Let's think about this for a second, just because I'm curious to know this myself. My old MPC 1, right? First generation MPC 1, still one of my favorite MPCs ever. This one is better. The Live 3 is way better. But the one is a little bit bigger in depth, but it's way smaller in every other way. So what I'm saying is that a version of the MPC 1 would make sense to me. Kind of small form factor, maybe not full-size pads, maybe something more like this. Or is that even possible? Is that even possible to make smaller size MPC pads but still have the MPC functionality? I think they've committed to that kind of thing. To me, it feels like that, because this is such a great idea on the Live 3. And the leaks of the XL also seems to have it. But something like this, without the speaker, I would love to see a battery inside of it, but that's me. It could be without the battery. It could also be without the speaker, without the microphone. MPC pads in a smaller form factor, smaller size, and also a tiltable screen. A tiltable display, a tiltable screen on the MPC-1 kind of form factor would make so much sense to me. This is not bad, but from an ergonomic kind of standpoint, being able to... I've seen someone making some kind of mod for this one too, to make the screen tiltable, and it makes so much more sense. So the same size of this one for the display, but just a hinge that makes it stand up. That would be awesome. And what else do they have on this one? I mean, the step sequencer would be... That could fit up here somewhere, I guess. 4 Q-Link knobs is already in place. And yeah, a bit of transport control would be really cool. Benjamin Button says it too. There is a tilt screen mod you can install. Sure, it is. Does it feel super scary to do it? Yep. Am I ready to commit? No. I don't have any reason to, because, you know, the MPC-1 is old by today's standards, and I prefer the Live 3 so much. But if they made something else, if the MPC XL is true and they drop something else, an updated version of the MPC-1 would be clutch. I would love that. You know, less I/O, sure. USB-C connection, yeah. MIDI in and out, we want that, but still. A tiltable screen, MPC pads, MPC pads, and maybe that doesn't make sense now that I think about it, because if you put a 16-step sequencer up here and also have a tiltable screen, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So maybe you need space down here. I don't know. I'm not a hardware designer, but I think that would be cool. I think that would have kind of a huge target group. A cheaper MPC-1 with the updated kind of functionality from the Live 3. That would be cool. Or maybe with a battery inside of it, as someone said right here. So Daniel and Dirty is having this conversation in Swedish, so please switch to English if it's possible. I believe with the MPC Live 3 in standalone mode, you can do anything you can do with the DAW if you're creative. Yeah, me too. I mean, there are some minor things when it comes to... No, maybe it's not. Maybe there's not. I've spent a lot of hours on my MPC Live 3 already, so it feels like I can do most things on there. Some stuff takes a little bit more time to do on this hardware device than working in a DAW, but that's just the nature of things. So yeah, that's what I would be excited about from Akai. Having a new updated version of the MPC-1. Maybe not for me as a user, but for like the entire community and the whole crowd of people making beats. It doesn't need to be tiny like the SP404. That's not what I'm saying. It could be MPC-1 kind of form factor, but just updated. Better specs and better pads and everything. That would be cool. And also just giving all the functionality from this one to an MPC key version would also make sense. An updated MPC key 37, MPC key 49, MPC key 61, MPC key 88, whatever you want to say, whatever you want, on one of those devices with a keyboard, having the MPC 3 functionality locked in there. Well, I would love that. I would. They really changed the last generation with the form factor. I wonder if this generation will only recycle what was done last gen. Whoop. Or if they can find something new. I mean, finding even more new things to add. That's what people like us want, right? We always want more functionality and more new stuff added. But I kind of have, maybe that should be its own separate stream someday. Just talking about what could be added in the MPC, standalone MPC kind of ecosystem. I have a hard time thinking about stuff. Maybe one of those like light sensors where you can go like that with your hand. I don't know. I don't know. Analog filter hardware knob. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's not a bad idea. Having an analog filter on the MPC to be able to route stuff through it and do some stuff. Maybe that filter should also be modulatable with stuff. You know, an LFO, an envelope, whatever you want. They should bring out another MPC XL for the new build. Yeah, I've seen some people talking about stuff like that too, like bringing back the actual form factor of something like the MPC 2000 XL or 2500 or whatever. Yeah, makes sense. The form factor, kind of the design and the look of it, iconic and classic and cool and awesome. But then you would have to add a touchscreen if you want the same functionality. A touchscreen, some more knobs, a different kind of transport control, in this case 16-step sequencer, and then you're back to this. Doing another version of a classic MPC and not including all the stuff that we got with this one would also be an option and kind of cool, but then it would be so much less effective. I don't know. Where are we on this computer though? Yeah, we haven't even started using that one. My bad. J2K says we have enough hardware. Yeah, that's also an argument. We have enough hardware to go for years at this point. I could just, my studio is pretty much completed if I wanted it to be. I need something to sequence beats on. I need a way to import or to record samples. And I would love a way to hit a key and make a sound. I have that and more. I still want even more fun stuff and ways to sequence things and program. That's more a want than it is a need, but you know what I'm saying. We don't need more stuff. Totally with you. X doesn't have a speaker or a mic. No, that's right. And I don't know Akai that way, but I think Akai has this, they decide to make a portable device, then they add the battery, a microphone, a speaker. That's for a portable device. Then, as far as I've seen leaks about the MPC XL, that's more of a studio piece. So you don't need the battery. You don't need the speaker. You don't need the microphone. Okay. For an MPC 1, I think that's a little bit in between because it's supposed to be affordable. So you don't need the microphone or the speaker. It's portable, but you're not going to use it like that anyways. A built-in microphone would be cool. A built-in battery would be useful. But a built-in battery in a device like that would make it more expensive. And now with the RAM shortage, maybe we want an MPC 1 with the same spec as this one, which is 8 gigs of RAM. RAM is expensive these days. So getting an MPC 1 with 8 gigs of RAM wouldn't be as affordable as we would want it to be. And then it kind of doesn't make sense. Damon says, what's good, Accurate? What's good? Seeing your stuff on Instagram. Very good lighting, and very good filming. Impressive stuff. Damon Flores? Yeah. I'm from Sweden, so I'm going to call you Damon Flores. It is what it is. Yeah, I'm good with Ableton and the launch key and records. For sure. That's a valid setup. Not taking anything away from anyone. That's good stuff. Good stuff. I like having stuff around, being able to do a little bit of this and that. That's who I am. Not super heavily promoting consumerism. but it's a passion for technology and gear, art, beats. Gotta compromise, you know. I wonder how much Akai has to say when they do new gear, or is it in music that decide? I think that's an interesting question, and that also brings Moog to the conversation. That's one of the things I wrote down over here, by the way. Akai, we've talked about Akai and the MPC XL, rumored, and anything else from the MPC, from Akai. Again, something small would be cool. A different version of the keys would be cool. Something really tiny would be cool. Like something in the form factor of an SP44 or even smaller. But then I don't think Akai is the right manufacturer for it. I think we need that from someone else. Like a small groove box with sampling and maybe some synthesizer engines and stuff. We have a lot of those things already. But having yet another one is not bad. That brings something unique to the table. I don't know what that should be though, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Yeah, let me do this again. Just because I kind of want something else than just my ugly face. You know, let's talk about native instruments for a bit. And potential leaks. No, there's no potential leaks, but there are rumors, I guess, or wishes, wish lists, or wants, basically. Absinthe 6 is here. They do a lot of marketing about Absinthe 6, and I haven't gotten around to try it yet, but I will. Session guitarist, you know, there's a lot of software from Native Instruments all over the place. They made the Tractor X1 and C1, new versions of that. That's, you know, that brings me to something I would want from Native Instruments. We're going to talk about Machine too, but something I would want from Native Instruments for real is an updated version of a proper, real battle mixer. Like the C2 that I'm using again in my setup. The Tractor Control C2 mixer is a fantastic battle mixer in so many ways. Getting a new updated version of that would also be so exciting. And this one is now compatible with Serato Scratch. And that's the way I use it now. I don't run the Tractor software anymore. I run Serato together with the C2. Having a Tractor Control C3 mixer would be awesome. I would love that. This is, I mean, these are DJ mixer products, but they don't have any analog inputs. They're just kind of controllers for the software. And that has a time and a place, sure, but an updated version of the Tractor mixer would be, yeah, that's cool. Am I alone in this? No one's saying anything in the chat room. I think the C2 mixer is a fantastic device the way it is. It could get updated with a proper C3 version of it. You know, we could see that happening. And if that happened, it would be cool. I'm not saying that's I'm not saying that's, you know, one of my predictions for NAMM, because it's not going to happen. Maybe not ever. But would I love to see it? Yes, I would. Tractor C3. But it's not going to happen. No chance. No chance. But when we're talking about music creation from Native Instruments, of course, there's a lot of software. Let's go hardware. Machine Micro. Control S49, S61, whatever you want. An updated version of the Machine controller or the Machine standalone unit. I've talked about that extensively in another video and people got all, you know, talky about it. I would love to see a Machine Mark IV. I would. Now, the consequences that would kind of bring to the table, I don't want that. Not even the slightest, because if they make another version of Machine Mark IV, what would happen with the development of Machine Mark III? Would they have to do stuff for Mark IV and incorporate that and make it compatible with Mark III, or would they just drop Mark III? If they dropped Mark III or Machine Plus, that would be terrifying. That's terrible news for anyone who really enjoys that system still. So I want a Machine 4 or a Machine Plus 2, as long as it doesn't compromise anything that has to do with Machine Plus. I want them to keep working on Machine Plus and Machine 3 and also bring out a Machine 4. Is it going to happen? Of course it's not going to happen. Of course. Not for NAMM. I saw someone on Reddit talking about it maybe being kind of a thing, but I don't buy that whatsoever. Not even the slightest. Actually quite the opposite. It feels like Native Instruments has committed to Machine Plus and Machine 3 in a way that's kind of positive. And they're also developing software for it, which is good. And that's what you're supposed to do. I like that a lot. But it feels like they're not even thinking about a new version of the Machine hardware. Machine Plus 2 or Machine Plus Plus. Yeah, I would be there for that every day of the week. Every day of the week. Is it going to happen? No. Or something like a Machine Micro Plus. Could also be a cool idea, but it's never going to happen. The Machine Micro form factor is actually really cool, but it doesn't have everything that we kind of want and need, so yeah, Machine Micro with a working knob in sample mode would be dope. Yeah, of course, that would be dope. The old micros are easily better than the newer micro. I know. The newest Machine Micro is... if you use it the way you're supposed to use it, together with a computer doing like the majority of the work on the actual software in the computer, and then going to the hardware whenever you want the tactileness of a hardware controller, then it's good. But working on an entire thing just on the Micro 3 without looking at the computer screen, that's not easy. Not easy at all. So, do I believe there will be a new version of Do I believe there will be a new version of the Machine Plus or Machine 3 hardware for NAMM 26? No. No chance. No chance. I'm still kind of a fan of this though. I like the looks of Machine. I do. Or just a massive, imagine that. They just bring out a massive update for Machine Plus and Machine 3 that does everything that everyone has ever asked for. That would be cool. That would be cool for real. Not like these small changes that improves one thing at a time, just one big update that just makes it compete with this one. The MPC Live 3. But that's also not going to happen, so why do we even care? Why do we even care? I think a lot of people in the community want something brand new from Native Instruments in the Akai ecosystem. Updates or a new piece of hardware, inexpensive, super fast, super quick, super capable. But we're asking for too much. We just are. J to the K says, it's weird that I fucked that up. The buttons on the MPC2 were nicer, on the MK2 were nicer too. Yeah, I know. But to be totally honest, the introduction of this one, the Complete Control S61 Mark III, they also kind of dropped the ball on that, because in many ways it's worse than the previous model. It's worse than the MK2 version. It's better when it comes to the screen and but it doesn't speak to Machine the same way at all. It's not as effective, it's not as good. The way I use mine over here with its own kind of computer just for the complete control software, that way it's amazing. It's fantastic. I love it for that. But the way it kind of doesn't communicate with machine anymore is such a crazy decision to make. But we've talked about that in videos. You know, we don't need to cover that too much. I'm just saying anything new from Native Instruments, NAMM 26, I don't think it's happening. It would be cool. A new version of the battle mixer or a new version of machine, but it's not going to happen. It's not. They're probably just going to update the Machine Plus to something as good as the SP44 in terms of connectivity and call it a day. Yeah, maybe they will, and I think that's just sad, you know. What else do we have? We have our Swedish friends over at Elektron. If you know me at all, you know that I'm not an Elektron user. I don't have like the Digitakt or the Tonework or whatever you're supposed to have. But I am a fan of the concept, and I like the idea and the thought of making music on something like the Digitone, Digitakt, whatever. And they dropped the Tonework, right? And they also said, I don't know exactly where, but they said, I wrote it down here, they've already said that this is not going to be their last instrument on this platform, which is promising. So the Tonework, or, you know, this platform, they're talking about it as a platform, which makes me think about it as a platform, because it's kind of similar to the other devices and whatever, which is cool. So having a version of the Tonework that does something that the Tonework doesn't do, I don't hate that. But at some point, now I'm trying to be all kind of speculative here, but at some point, Elektron is going to reach a point where they start competing with themselves. You know? They can't make another sampler that's too similar to what they already have, but just a slight improvement. It doesn't make sense for that kind of target audience, I think. If they wanted to make a proper analog synth with like subtractive synthesis, maybe that's something. Maybe making an FM synth with, you know, FM functionality that we've never ever seen before. Maybe that's something. But I think they kind of need to. They can't make another device that's too similar to something else. So another device in the Tonework ecosystem, what could that be? Does anyone have any ideas about what that could be? To kind of not compete with themselves, but more like completing the ecosystem, adding something to it? I don't know what that would be. I don't. Yeah, Wigmaster says it. It's crazy how many options there are right now. There used to be like 4 machines. I know. Today we have so many different options. I keep talking about MPCs and machine a lot, but there are so many devices from Elektron, from Polyend, from, you know, all the other kind of tracker systems. The Deluge, that's huge. You know, I can't even think of all of them, but there are so many different groove boxes and whatever. Roland's TR1000, or maybe even the MC707. Dirty 1200 says Elektron mixer. Yeah, that would be Elektron making a device that doesn't compete with anything else they've done. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. A mixer from Elektron that also works with their entire ecosystem and just has functionality with other Elektron boxes that doesn't work with anything else. To me, it feels like that's something Elektron could do. I could see them implementing some kind of magical technology in a mixer that works with the Elektron boxes, but that doesn't work with anything else. So you kind of got to be in the ecosystem to be, you need to be an Elektron guy to fully get the full experience of using the mixer. Sure, a mixer from Elektron would be interesting. It would. Oh. That's a video that I haven't seen. Yeah, that's the mixer. That's the Elektron mixer right there. He looks even more hipster than me. Well, that feels very techno-esque. Whatever. I have a lot of respect for Elektron and a lot of respect and interest in all the Elektron devices. Unfortunately, I got my hands on the model samples. That's the worst thing I've ever used. No, that's not true. It's not the worst thing I've ever used, but it's not a good piece of gear in my mind. Is the Machine Studio still usable with the newest software? That's a good question. Maybe that's something they should go for. I'm talking about Machine Plus and whatever, but Machine Studio, imagine that. A super updated standalone version of Machine Studio, like the size of what the MPC XL looks like, the leaks of it. A huge kind of centerpiece, like the big brother of everything. Machine Studio Plus. Machine Studio Plus, yeah, that's the name of it. Would have been cool. I doubt that's gonna happen. Elektron. So another device in the Tonework ecosystem. I think that's something we could see in NAMM 2026 in a couple of days, a few days in a week. Something like that. I can't really come up with an idea for what that would be because Elektron is kind of crazy like that. But another different, more different device from them would make sense. Would make sense. To answer the question, I don't think Machine Studio is a good choice these days. It's inexpensive, sure, but I guess I don't know. I don't even know if it's compatible with the latest version of the software. If it is, I still think it's too old, basically. So that's Elektron. Google says it still works. Okay, so maybe it does. Maybe it's still compatible and it works. I still don't think it's a good idea to pick it up. I don't. Because if you have a hardware device like that, like a controller unit for the software, as soon as something stops working on it or just sends some kind of message on one of the knobs that's not supposed to be there, it's such a headache to deal with. Because then you have kind of all types of lanes of automation written that you don't want. Or something like that. Just gotta get into the stream on a separate display here to kind of know what's happening. Yeah, it seems that it looks good and it works. So, Akai, we kind of know what we know, or we think we know what we think we know. Elektron might be something new in the Tonework ecosystem. Machine, no. Tractor Control C3, no. Moving on to Moog, or Moog. I think I prefer saying Moog. Yeah. Moog is interesting. Let's go to Moog. Moog Music. Nowadays owned by InMusic. just like Akai. And, it is what it is. Businesses buys other businesses and everything becomes a big monopoly. I don't know. I still have a lot of trust and a lot of interest in Moog. For real. This is the Moog Messenger. It came out last year, I think. I haven't gotten my hands on this one. I've seen a few videos and it seems interesting and cool. But I don't have it. I haven't tried it. And it is what it is. What is this? A machine? What? A machine for deep... sorry. A machine for deeper meaning. Okay, cool. I love the marketing material. This is fun. So Moog is one of those manufacturers that I feel like, they always make good stuff. I have the Subharmonicon, I've had the DFAM, and they are different and kind of special. But Moog has, there's a certain kind of respect that comes with the name Moog. And if InMusic did something with the Moog products that made it worse, I think that would be devastating. And I really don't think InMusic would do something like that. I think the opposite. I think InMusic is able to see the potential and the value in Moog as a high quality brand that has like a lot of trust from people. So if they were to release something else, I think it's going to be good. It's not going to be one of those like quick money grabs, just making something with a Moog logo on it and making it sound bad and making it work bad or whatever. So if we got something new from Moog, I think it's going to be good. I do think it's a little bit too early to get something new for NAMM 26 from Moog because this one is not that old. So getting something new from Moog is not really on my radar. I don't think that's realistic. But look at the photos. Look at the stuff. Boom. That's a synth. The Moog Messenger. I don't know why, but I have this love for Moog as a brand. Even though I haven't ever had one of the bigger proper synths from them. I would love to get a chance to get a hold of one, but do you know what I'm saying? My best synth experience in my entire life was with a Moog at the Tallman thing they invited me to. I had kind of a breakdown and spent an hour or two with one of the Moog synths on my own, just, trying to wrap my head around stress and anxiety and whatever. And it just felt so good. Just playing around with the filter, switching around with things and just exploring it. Somehow that just resonated and I can't forget about that. So, yeah. Personal stuff, but still. Benjamin Budden says, Moog has my respect and I hope they keep a good quality. Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. And I have a hard time believing that InMusic would do something bad to Moog as a brand and make them create something that's not up to the Moog standard. But I could be wrong. Something new from Moog, I would love it, but I doubt that's real. Now let's get into Korg. Could there be something new coming from Korg? Could it? Products. So this is their website. Synthesizers, keyboards, DJ and production tools, computer gear, software, drums, percussion. What I'm interested in, if we're talking about these things, is audio, sure. But, of course, DJ and production tools. As well as synthesizers. Volca new bass. Yeah, the handy tracks play. I got that one upstairs in the living room. Works wonderfully well. The Chaos Replay. We talked about that one in a dedicated video. Chaos Pad 3. Chaos DJ. Chaos Pad Quad. Yeah, so these are the Chaos series. Dedicated sequencer. New tech. These devices are pretty cool. Getting something new in this kind of lineup from Korg wouldn't be impossible. You know, we have the Chaos Pad kit, we have the digital NTS1 kit oscillator. That's something I would love to see as well. Like a bigger form factor kind of oscillator. Standalone oscillator, 19-inch rack, maybe 2U. Would be cool. So predicting something like this, it's really hard because they could do whatever in this case. Maybe something in the new tech series that does drums, a dedicated drum machine in the new tech series. I could see that coming. And I haven't thought about this in beforehand. I'm just figuring out stuff as I sit here talking. And yeah, a new tech series drum machine could happen. Could happen. Or a new Chaosillator. Would that be useful today though? A Chaosillator? I mean, the Chaos Pad is what it is. It adds effects and you can trigger samples and whatever. That will always kind of have its own little purpose, even though this unit itself is too expensive and whatever. Having a touch display like that, triggering notes in different keys and scales and whatever, and then not being able to do a lot with the synth engine, I'm not sure that's something good for 2026. Nah, don't think so. A new Volca could also happen, for sure. You never know. I stopped buying Volcas years ago because I have stuff, but a new Volca. I saw something on Reddit about a Volca Beats 2, more inspired by the 808 or whatever. I'm not sure anyone would buy something like that, but it wouldn't be a bad product. The Volcas are kind of solid for what they are, but what they are is not that special. They used to be, but now we've done this for years. Getting a new Volca, but with different drums, for instance, maybe not. To me, the Volca FM is maybe the most useful and kind of well working out of the Volca series. Mostly because you can actually import hex files or whatever it's called. Like proper FM synth patches from whatever that one's called. The classic one. The FM7. No. It slipped my mind. A new Volca could happen. A new Volca could definitely happen. ARP 2600M. That's also a cool device. Korg has a lot of cool stuff. Out of their latest kind of stuff, I like my multi-poly a lot. By far the best one to me in this whole, the synths with the same kind of shape and form factor and size. The DX7, thank you. Of course, the DX7. So the multi-poly to me is the best one out of the new. Odyssey. Sure, an MS-20. You can always make a new version of the MS-20 that's more accurate to the actual MS-20. Sure, but is it worth doing? This is where it's getting interesting. This could be so cool. Now, I doubt that this is going to happen in a week from now on NAMM 26, but if Korg decided to make a new version of the Electribe sampler. Electribe sampler. Isn't this supposed to be the Electribe sampler 2? Electribe sampler 2? I'm not sure anymore. Beat Platoon asks, what about this Bluetooth function built in be part of a big update of the Machine Plus? Bluetooth functionality in Machine Plus? Not that excited about Bluetooth whatsoever, to be honest. Tyler Ty Beats, how about they combined both of the Electribes and made an updated version with the latest hardware available? Now we're talking. Now we are talking. I mean, I haven't used this one a lot myself. It's not like I've ever made a full beat on it, ever. But the little I've played around with it, it's cool. It's fun. And, it has pads, and it has knobs and buttons. I think an updated version of this would need a larger screen, a much larger display than this. Maybe a touchscreen like on the MPCs, or maybe not. If they manage to make a really good kind of interface for how everything works, they could go without using a touchscreen necessarily. But an updated version of this, sure. A version that's a combination between the Electribe and the Electribe sampler. I think that would make sense and be cool. That setup right there. Huh. Metallic and new colors, whatever. That wouldn't be bad. And I don't know why he is on here. But yeah. Korg Electribe. Imagine this. Imagine if Korg just decided to go all in on the Groovebox kind of functionality, competing with something like the MPC or the SP404. Making an updated version of the Electribe sampler that's way bigger, way more competent, more buttons, more knobs, sliders, pads, a bigger screen, just a fully fledged out Groovebox for everything. It can sample, it has synthesizer engines because Korg knows how to make synths. So put some of that stuff in there. Just as it is, in the hardware. Forget about plugins and user interfaces and whatever. Just assign buttons to the actual controls on a synth in, maybe the multi-poly kind of engine. And also a sequencer that's competent and flexible and everything. A sampler and everything. Yeah. All Electribes in Nintendo Switch 2 with touchscreen. Are they? So the Electribes are available for the Nintendo Switch 2? Is that true? In that case, that's just funny to me. I'd like to see more dedicated hardware controllers for Korg's software synths, like my MS-20 controller they released back in the 2000s. Mine still works like a charm, but it won't happen. Slop addicts. That's an interesting angle. Because before I got into hardware, more or less for real, I was a huge fan of Machine and that way of working with things. Machine as a dedicated hardware controller for a software running on your computer. That's a good solution. That's a good concept right there. I'm not sure if it's good in 2026. Maybe it is. I also had one of the Korg microcontroller, I think. And I managed to map all the different sliders and knobs and stuff to some pieces of software, and it felt so good. Being able to use the computer in my actual computer and control everything from a unit. It's not a bad concept. I would also love to see more manufacturers, Korg or others, doing that. Maybe having a hardware unit that looks like an 808, for instance, and it runs an 808 emulator on the computer one-to-one. It just works perfectly. All the buttons, everything is in there, and it feels like working on a proper 808. That wouldn't be bad, but then you would have to build a hardware controller that feels and looks like an 808, and that's expensive. And then you need to hook that up to the actual plugin, and it just has one single purpose. I don't think it makes sense from a kind of production development kind of standpoint, but I like the idea of it. MS-20 controller is a good kind of example, but no, it won't happen. And Dirty 1200 says no, but it could happen. Korg worked with Nintendo before. Okay, so the Nintendo Switch thing for the Electribes is not a thing. But I mean, if we want that, if we want like touch interfaces to work with stuff like that, you could bring the Korg Electribe into an iPad, if you want the interface to be like that, or as a plugin to use everything. But then it doesn't make sense anymore. It's not that special. The hardware is what makes it unique. So I don't think that's going to happen. It's not a prediction, but I'm just spitballing ideas here. A huge, massive, cool and groundbreaking version of the Electribe sampler in a bigger form factor. Would love it. Electribe is available on the iPad. Okay, maybe it is. I don't know anything. The Korg Electribe is interesting to me, but I don't have a lot of experience. Would I love to see them go crazy and all in on the Grovebox thing and make a proper one? 100%. Would love that. I doubt that's going to happen, though. We also have this. We need to talk about Phase 8 real quick. I saw videos about it from Korg Berlin, right? Phase 8 Korg. Here we are. Phase 8 prototype. This is fun, right? No, there's no audio. I'm just watching the video. The Phase 8 prototype preview. Acoustic synthesis. I think in general we need more stuff like this. I saw some video from Superbooth, someone just playing around with this prototype unit, and it sounded like crazy. It's kind of a thumb piano, but a lot more. And they said this one was going to release early 2026, I think. Let me double check what I have here. Yeah, it was teased on Superbooth, and they said that it's going to be released early 2026. So this could actually be something we see in the NAMM Show 26. Could be. And I mean, it's experimental, it's different, and it's fun. So I think music technology has kind of two different tracks where things could go. Either super effective and competent and just good for everything you want to do in terms of beat making and music production. Effective and productive stuff. Or fun and experimental. And I think this one, the Phase 8, is definitely an example of being more experimental and fun and groundbreaking and new and whatever. If it sounds good, that's a different question. If it's actually usable for music production as an instrument, that's a different question. But it could be cool. Could be cool. If it comes out. If it doesn't come out right now, I guess it's going to be here before June or something, but just the look of it, even though this is a prototype, seems cool. Seems really cool. And also one of those things that would just be awesome to have sitting in your studio. Being able to go like, yeah, I don't know what to start this project. I need to start with something a little bit out there and crazy and just get some kind of inspiration. Yeah, go for this one, the Phase 8, and just do something, use that as a sample and start working on things from there. Could be a great kind of starting point for getting new ideas and stuff. So maybe not. Maybe not. I just think it's impressive. It's cool. I also have those pens. So yeah, maybe that's something we're going to see at NAMM 26. Maybe not. Korg in general, we talked about Volcus being maybe possible. Phase 8 could be possible. Electribe, a bigger version, awesome. I don't believe that's going to happen, but if it did, I would be there. I would get that one in here, give it a try, make videos, make a little bit of music, you know. Korg did a lot of stuff last year, right? I think Korg did a lot of stuff last year during NAMM. Wasn't it at NAMM we saw the turntable? And like the rack-mounted version of the multi-poly? Let's look for that real quick and just see if I'm wrong. Korg NAMM 2025. Feels weird to type 2025. Yeah, the multi-poly. Korg expands the multi-poly range. Yeah, that unit came out at NAMM. And that one too, right? Yeah. The Mini Korg 700 SM. Just from the aesthetics, I mean, I love how this looks. So geeky and nerdy and just old school and classic in a great way. So getting an updated version of one of the classic synths wouldn't be bad either. Because it feels like Korg always surprises me with something cool. What that would be is hard to say. They have the mod, what's that one called? Mod X. Korg mod X, yeah. You know, they have all these kinds of things, and even though I'm sure these are super competent and great pieces of gear, I just can't seem to get interested. Workstation synths, workstation keyboards, or like, you know, for professional piano players for live use or for going on tours or whatever. It's instruments that has a time and a place for sure, and it's cool, but I can't get excited about it for some reason. Just can't. So new versions of this or something similar to it, I'm sure it's going to come out sometime, and I'm sure it's going to be cool. Korg Op 6 and... Hey, am I fucking up? The Mod X is not from Korg. No. The Mod X series of stuff is not from Korg. It's Yamaha. Whatever. Yamaha made this really crappy, which is not fair of me to say because I haven't tried it, but you know, the small drum pad controller things for like, it looks like a hand and it's supposed to be ergonomic with drums and whatever. Not interested. For some reason, I'm just not. If I want to do finger drumming, I want my 16 pads. That's just what it is. Just put MIDI CC in and out of really old models and patch memory, and I will buy them. Beat Platoon shared something on Discord. Let's check that out. Oh, this is what you talked about before. No. I guess it is. I mean, as a concept, I don't hate it, but 3 screens? I don't think this makes sense. Just from the look of it. Oh, okay, you can't see it. My fucking bad. There we are. Sorry. 3 screens on a machine controller and this thing as like a trackpad to be able to control stuff on here for what we talked about before, like the piano roll and stuff. Don't know. It also looks like a video editing device more than anything else. You know, you want to work on your DaVinci Resolve project on this one. You don't want to make beats on it. I don't know. Maybe choosing what's shown on the screen will be a thing. Maybe it will be a thing. How can I join the Discord? You know what? I'm gonna send you a link. Invite to server. And you're supposed to do that, and you're supposed to do that, and you're supposed to do that, and you're supposed to do that. Generate a link. Copy the link. Paste the link. Yeah, you can't paste the link in there. Right, I've tried that before and it just won't work. So no. Computers. But hey, Yamaha could... Someone said something about the Denny Street. I love my Yamaha 50-finger drum pad. It's portable and I can play it without a PC. Is that what it's called? Yamaha 50. Yeah. Impossible for me to get excited about this. This is $300, kinda. Getting one to just play around with it, sure, I'm open to it. Would I want to pay $300 for it? No, because the samples inside of it doesn't feel useful for production. So then I would have to kind of practice my finger drumming on the couch or whatever with bad sound, and then hook it up in here to an actual sample pack of drums that I like. Too much work, not excited. Not exciting. But hey, Yamaha could also make a really cool... Where are we on the stream? There we are. Who knows? Yamaha could make a really cool analog synth that everyone loves, and it's just the best thing ever. Why not? Why not? Someone else loves his Yamaha XT16W. Yeah, that's a sampler. That's a different thing. Here we have motorcycles. Let's check out someone else. Let's go back to my list on this screen right here. On this screen right here. What? No, it's not that. I don't have the thing. My bad. Arturia. Arturia. The only like proper thing about potential leaks or rumors from Arturia is a bigger maxi or brute version of this one, the Mini Freak, or the Freak series of products. We have the Micro Freak and we have the Mini Freak. Will there be a Maxi Freak or a Brute Freak or a Super Freak? Super Freak. Yeah. Hello and welcome to my coverage of the Arturia Super Freak. That's a product name if I ever heard one. But, you know, we did this thing a few weeks ago where I looked at your like people's in the community's home studios, and there were so many Mini Freaks, and I understand why, because the Mini Freak is a great synth. I mean, mine is sitting right here. The setup right now, MPC Live 2, no, MPC Live 3, and the Mini Freak. It's a great synth, and getting a maxed out version of the Mini Freak wouldn't be bad. So the Micro Freak is what it is. The Mini Freak is like 2 Micro Freaks in one. Getting a Maxi Freak, that's pretty much 4 Mini Freaks in one, plus everything we got from the Mini Brute. No, not the Mini Brute, the big one. Where do we have their products? Over here. Hardware synthesizers, yeah, Astrolab, useful stuff, but for some reason it doesn't appeal to me. The Polybrute 12. I mean, imagine this kind of shit again. Imagine like this kind of form factor, this size of it, but instead of being a Polybrute, it's a multi-freak, maxi freak, super freak. I would love that. Because, again, the Mini Freak is a great synth in so many ways. So useful, so many cool presets, and easily controlled. It's just easy to navigate. Everything sounds good. It's just a beast of a synth. Having that in a huge form factor, in a proper, like, I would love that. Let's call it, what did I say? I said something else. Super Freak, Mini Freak, Brute Freak, a Super Freak. Yeah, I want them to release a Super Freak. More standalone drum machines, maybe not. The Polybrute doesn't need to be that huge. Or, I mean, what am I comparing? Something like the Polybrute or something like the Polybrute 12. You know, this kind of form factor, but a freak. Arturia Sample Freak. Beat Measure. Is Mini Freak worth it in 2026? I think it is. Flat out, I think it is. It's not that expensive and it's freaking competent. It's a good kind of bang for the buck and it does a little bit of everything. I would say the Mini Freak is still one of the better. Yeah, the Mini Freak is to me one of the better synths in that kind of price range. The form factor is good for what it is. And it's, it's so useful. Just a great little instrument. And the Freak technology is good. So a huge version, I would love that. Dirty 1200 Sample Freak, I don't think that's doable. And I can't see them making another Drum Brute. I think that ship has kind of sailed. Even though they are pretty cool. still. Different and you know, they're different and unique in their own right, but it's not a bad product. But making more analog drum machines, yeah, in that case you need to bring something totally new to the table. And I can't see Arturia doing that. Do we take rights or credit for correct predictions? Of course. Of course. If you have any like clear predictions that you want to see or that you really believe in, write it in the chat in a way that stands out so we can see it. Mini Brute. I mean, they have a lot of stuff. Matrix Brute. Micro. What happens if we go to hardware synthesizers? As a here. I think we had a way to just click Freak before. Freak. Mini Freak Vocoder Edition. Yeah. Okay, that's one of my more stronger opinions. A new, bigger version of a Freak synth from Arturia in NAMM 2026. Would be cool. Would be cool. Arturia, what else could Arturia do? Brute Freak, Super Freak, whatever. I mean, that's the only thing I can kind of come up with as a concept that would work. A Mini Freak scaled up. And not just scaled up, with more functionality and more oscillators and more modulation possibilities and everything that goes with the bigger synth. Or, you know what? You know what would be cool? A version of the Mini Freak in a different form factor, a huge one. And it has the two versions of the Micro Freak as we have on the Mini Freak. But you also have you also have 3 analog oscillators in there. So it's a hybrid. It's digital and it has the Freak kind of branding, but it's also analog. So you can combine analog circuitry with the filter kind of, the Freak thing. That's my prediction. Super Freak from Arturia will be the Mini Freak scaled up with a few added analog oscillators and filters. That's it. Let's leave Arturia. ASM. I wrote them on my list. ASM, the makers of the Hydrosynth. Yeah, it's called something else. I can't even sign up for the newsletter. No. Ashen Sound Machines, ASM. I don't have any experience at all with the Hydrosynth, and I hate the logo. I just hate it. This R and this A. Ugh. Such an eyesore, but still. The Hydrosynth is popular. It's hyped up and a lot of people swears by it. It comes in a few different form factors, right? Like that picture right there. It feels like, you know, with the black and orange stuff and this kind of form factor and shape of it, reminds me of the Jupiter XM, but it's supposed to be a little bit easier to use and more straightforward. From what I've heard, it sounds really good. So a Hydrosynth 2, when did this one even came out? When did this one even come out? I'm not sure. Is it time for a Hydrosynth 2? Maybe it is. In different form factors, or maybe... No, imagine this. Hydrosynth 2, the opposite. in the form factor of a mini freak. Just that. Nothing too special, nothing too fancy, nothing large and like massive and whatever. Just a small form factor. You know, a compact kind of keyboard, a bunch of controls, a bunch of advanced, well-sounding synthesis in there. Would not hate it. I've been wanting to get one of the Hydrosynths, but it just never happened. So a Hydrosynth 2? Maybe. We also have, I also wrote up Nord. Nord keyboards. I mean, this is a different kind of genre of things because they're not really, they're different, you know? But it's not impossible to see Nord going for a proper synth again. Not necessarily like a stage keyboard with like the most professional keyboard ever for professional piano players, but something with a bunch of controls that does a lot of cool stuff in it. Analog synth, polyphonic. Kind of a left field idea or guess, but it wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad. Even though I'm not a fan of the red stuff. But, you know, something like the Nord Elektron. But again, maybe smaller and more affordable and more kind of reasonable. Not sure. No. I'm over it. One other manufacturer that always drops things and it's hard to not get excited and equally hard to get excited enough to buy it these days. Teenage Engineering, NAMM 2026. What will they do? Hopefully something really cool. Maybe nothing at all, of course, but hopefully something really cool. But what I think is actually more likely is another version of the same crap. I shouldn't say crap because the KO2 is not crap. This is a competent device in a lot of ways. But the KO2, the original one, came out like that, and I think that's the strongest option of the three. It looks better and it feels the less like compromised. Then we had the medieval one. Hate everything about the design and the look and the theme of it. Then we have the rhythm that also came with this microphone thing, the rhythm and ting. Hate that. I just hate it. I don't know what it is. I hate it with a passion. It just feels want to throw up. Not just because it's made by a Swedish company and they're trying to do this whole Jamaican stuff, and I think that's disgusting as it is. I know it's developed together with this and that, and they did whatever for the storm and the catastrophe and whatever, and that's good. It's really good that anyone does anything when it comes to, you know. But the design of it, the entireness of the rhythm is hate it. An even more stripped down version or cleaner version of the KO2, I can't see that happening. If I had to predict something, I would say they will drop a version of the KO2, which is basically what these are, with maybe like a space theme or underwater. You know, we have the Jamaican thing, we have the medieval thing. Going for a Japanese theme would be something, but I think that's too predictable, so maybe KO2 Space Edition. All blacked out with a bunch of like planets and whatever. I doubt it, but I wouldn't say that it's impossible because they apparently keep making this stuff. So a version of it, maybe. Ah, there they are. KO2, Rhythm, and Medieval. Pocket operators, I think we're over that. Maybe we're not, but I kind of think we are over the entire thing. We have the OPC, the OPXY, right? And the OP1 field. I still have my OP1. Right there. The original OP1, I should say. The first version, not the field. It's really, really old. And what's awesome and cool about it is that the battery life on this one is still incredible. Now it's dead. It's never dead, but it's dead right now. That's unfortunate. I need to charge it and have battery for like a few more weeks. It's crazy. It's crazy. But, you know, the field system, all of these things, they have a microphone, they have a recorder, they have a mixer. This one also has a radio, I think. Another one in this kind of ecosystem would be Cole. This is a design I love, by the way, for the OP1 field and these ones. But what could that be? Maybe a synth in this kind of form factor? Just a simple 2-voice synth with a bunch of controls and, you know, maybe just 12 tiny buttons for input. I don't know. It's really hard to say anything about what Native Instruments or what it's really hard to say anything about what it's hard to say anything about what Teenage Engineering could come up with, but maybe something, or maybe just, you know, a yellow version of this. You never know. The OPXY seems cool. Haven't tried it. The OP1, talked about that, and the OPC, I had it for a while and I had to sell it because it just didn't click, even though I know it's great. I know it's great. But I think that's all we've got on the Teenage Engineering stuff. I predict a Teenage Engineering KO2 space theme or underwater theme or Japan. I don't know. That's pretty much all I have on my list over here. Erica Synths is also mentioned on my list, and they are also one of those companies that keeps dropping stuff that's kind of exciting and different and new. So saying anything about what Erica Synths could bring to the table is difficult, and they also tend to use Superbooth more than NAMM for their stuff. So I don't know. That's also why we don't talk about modular gear, because I don't use modular synths at all, and it's not really something we see a lot of in NAMM. That's more of a Superbooth thing. Novation is on my list. Novation. Maybe it's time for a new Novation circuit. What do they have? The Base Station 2, the Mini Nova, the Peak, the Summit, out of stock. That's interesting. Products. Circuit Rhythm, Circuit Tracks. I had that one, the Rhythm, for quite a while. For someone like me with a bunch of gear, I felt like the circuit rhythm didn't really add much, even though it's cool that it's battery powered and it's standalone and it's kind of fun. I never found it to be inspiring enough to keep it around, even though it's a great piece of kit. But, you know, the first circuit, why is that not listed here? All the circuits, just these two, the tracks and the rhythm. Again, the same kind of concept. If Novation brought back a bigger version, like a full kind of flagship circuit, I would totally be up for giving that a run. It's a cool kind of ecosystem. The rhythm felt a little too cumbersome to use. But again, the way that they make stuff without displays is kind of cool and interesting. So if they made something bigger with more dedicated knobs for different things, that was, you know, the problem with the rhythm to me was that every single knob had a different function depending on where you were in the system. So having a massive version of a circuit rhythm or circuit unit that's bigger with more dedicated stuff, knobs and buttons for different things, that enables a quick and easy kind of workflow and is inspiring in its own right, would not hate that. I wouldn't. Do I think it's kind of plausible? No, I don't. I can't see them doing that. But I think someone needs to compete for real with Akai. I love Akai and I love the MPCs. I do. But someone needs to compete with them for real. Roland with the TR-1000, I mean, that's more a drum machine, even though you can use samples and do a little bit of editing and whatever. I want someone to bring something to the table that can compete with the MPC Live 2 or the leaks of what we've seen from the MPC XL. Roland needs to bring the MV series back. Maybe they do. Or maybe the MC707 was their kind of attempt to do that kind of stuff. I like the MC707 a lot when I used it a lot. But it's one of those devices that you need to kind of keep working on. As soon as I stopped working on the MC707, I forgot about the workflow completely. And it became troublesome to kind of understand everything again and to relearn it. The MC707 could also be updated. Roland MC707 Mark II. Sounds possible. I think it does. A lot of talk in the conversation in the chat room about the Roland MV 8000, for instance. It's about a bunch of... That's a photo. That's a better picture. The Roland MV 8000 production studio. This is one of those things that someone like me should be really interested in, and I should try to get my hands on one and start working on it and just see what it's all about. It's old school and it's kind of cool and whatever, but somehow I'm not sure. And of course, this display right here kind of scares me. But, you know, it also feels and kind of looks like an MPC. So, a standalone sampler from Roland in this kind of form factor. A part of me kind of feels that, you know, if I were a product developer for Roland, going this kind of route would be impossibly dangerous. Because the first thing people would do, people like me, would compare it to an MPC. And I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about like a new modern version of something in the MV series. Something that looks kind of like this, but it's brand new and updated and whatever. The first thing everyone would do is to compare it to one of the modern MPCs, and then it probably wouldn't hold up. it probably wouldn't perform as well, or be as competent, or being as useful, or being as straightforward when it comes to the functionality and the workflow. Dirty 1200 keeps yelling in the chat room. They always sound great. Maybe they do. Maybe they have a little bit of specialness to them. And that's a quality that's not to be overlooked, for sure. But since it would be compared to an MPC immediately, they would have to work on something like this in-house for years, doing so much beta testing and just making sure that it's perfect at launch, launching it, and then it's up to par with an MPC. At this point, that's pretty much an impossible mission to go for. The SP505 was also a thing. Yeah, and they shut everything like that down. They did the SP404, they did the tiny little thing, and they did the MC707. Well, I think you is wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But if we just think about all the functionalities we have in the MPC Live 3, getting something up to that standard and ready to be released would be so much work. He also says the new MV could have the IRA synth technology in it. Yep, it could. It could have some of the System 8 functionality with not plugins, but plug-outs, right? To enable you to add a bunch of different stuff inside of it and kind of modify the internals of the MV. If you do something like that. And that would be cool and different and unique and definitely a selling point. But getting the overall system to work as well as Machine Plus or an MPC. I think that's a challenge. And getting one of these ones, if someone would offer me this for $800, that sounded too much when I said it. $500, I would just jump on it. I think. Because it seems cool. But is it actually as powerful and competent and effective as some of the new stuff we have? Probably not. Does it have to? No, I don't think so either. So maybe I'm wrong. But I've never had any experience with this. So it's not like I have a lot of love for this concept. Maybe I should. I don't. Same goes for the MC, what did we say? The SP505. Yeah, a listing on eBay. That's $400. Beat Platoon. Okay, let's address this. You keep avoid even spell about Machine Studio Mark II. Are you afraid of something? No, I'm not. Machine Studio Mark II. I did talk about it. Like a bigger version of Machine Studio standalone competing with the MPCs. Sure, that could be cool. But again, I feel like Native Instruments, it feels like they have some sort of issues with the development of things for the Machine system and platform. They are working on it, and it's really slowly coming together. So adding another hardware device, I think that would be I don't think that would be good for them. But if there were to be a Machine Studio Mark II, I'm not against that at all. No way overpriced can get MV8000 for 400-ish though. Is that true? MV8000 Roland. Let's see if I can find any ones for sale. And it doesn't look like it this quickly, at least. Not around here. Roland MV8000 Production Studio Sampler Hardware Sequencer plus CD drive. $496. Yeah, I'm not gonna buy that. And when was this listed? I don't understand eBay for shit, so who knows. But I think that's pretty much what I had on my list, at least, of things. So maybe an Akai Force with MPC pads or MPE pads. MPE pads. No. You know, the whole MPE thing is kind of interesting with the continuum and those black squishy ones, whatever that's called, and what Akai is doing with the MPCE pads. Kind of interesting. I wonder what will happen with the whole MPE thing in the future and the MIDI 2 stuff. A part of me feels like, yeah, adding a different kind of dimension, I guess, of expression is not a bad thing at all. I find it a little bit hard to control whenever I play something like that. I used to have, or I still have, a few of those squishy ones. What are those called? Something on with R. Roly keyboards. I have one of the smaller ones, and it's fun, and it's cool, and it has its own software, and it's special and unique, but it's more of a... I mean, that's kind of a good thing too, because it's more of an instrument than most keyboards, because it's special and it has like unique properties and whatever. But I find myself using it for like a project. So if I choose to bring it out and use the software and everything, using the MPE functionality, I do that for one project once, and then I just put it away and start making music with other stuff. It's cool and it's fun and it adds a different kind of element, but it's almost like it's too different. It's too special. It's too specific. It does one thing. Not true. It does a lot of things, but you know what I'm saying. Using it is cool, but having functionality that's kind of close to that in the MPCE pads, makes more sense to me. So I think that's an interesting kind of technology to follow, to see what happens and where it lands and where it's going to end up. Because right now it feels like, yeah, it's cool and useful, and if you like it, you really like it. But for most people, it's too hard. You can do you can get a bunch of control, but then you kind of need to learn and understand how to get that amount of control and to control the control, if that makes sense. I have one too. Can it be used as a MIDI controller with MPE on the new MPC? Not sure. I haven't tried it. A part of me thinks that that doesn't work right out of the box. You need to do a lot of setting up and assigning MIDI CCs to different parameters. That's what I think. And then it's not as seamless as it should. Roger Lynn also, he does that too with his Lynn instrument. I know, and he's good. He's good at it, and he knows what he's doing. But I'm talking about using something like that as a tool for more regular kind of music production. If you learn it and you understand it and you master it, it's going to be useful for a lot of things. But for most of us, I don't think it's there just yet. Maybe not the technology, maybe not like how we developed our muscle memories and whatever. To me, it just meh. But again, it's an interesting kind of technology to follow, and I'm excited to see what will happen with it. But I'm just not going to be a heavy MPE user in a few years, I think. And that has nothing to do with age. That's not what I'm saying. So this is also, Rick is replying to Beat Platoon. If NAMM is all about AI, then I lost all hope. Yeah, me too. I mean, AI, out of all different creatives, I think musicians and producers are maybe the most against AI in general, for good reason. For sure. I'm not a big fan of AI-generated music and AI technology, even though in my day job, I use a lot of AI tools in Photoshop and InDesign and for just generating photos and whatever. My day job is what it is. It's a little bit messed up, but I do a lot of graphic design kind of work in that job, and using stuff like AI in Photoshop. If you don't do it, you're pretty much just stupid. And I'm not using that for art. That's not, in my day job, and I'm talking about in my day job where I don't do art. It's not even connected to art. It has nothing to do with that. So in art, I think AI has no place to be. But when it comes to like tools for erasing, erasing this one out of my hand in a photo, sure. I think that's beneficial and useful. Music, AI, those are two words that don't belong together. To me. Or AI in art. Dirty says, I use AI to build tools that helps me create music. Sure, I think AI could be used as a tool in many ways without it being like totally disgusting. But I also think AI can kind of devalue art in general, which is bad. Let's try to sum this up. I need to go to bed. We need to quit the stream. I've been live for over 2 hours. I think this was interesting. NAMM 2026 is going to be cool. I'm going to sit here as a fucking geek and watching all types of videos on all types of gear that comes out and gets announced and gets demoed and whatever. And those videos aren't very fun most of the times, but they're informative and cool. And just having a little bit of a think and a conversation about what's going to be released and what could be released is cool. AI in synthesizers, drum machines, and samplers. I don't know about that, but I think it's time for one or two manufacturers in this space to actually step up and make something that competes with the newer generations of the MPCs. That's what I think. It could be Korg with an updated version of the Elektron. It could be Teenage Engineering making a dedicated sampler. Could be Roland bringing like a version of the MV, or maybe an updated version of the MC707. Could be Elektron doing something like a Digitact, but a different shape and form factor. I think it's time for someone to step up. I don't have a lot of trust in Native Instruments as a competitor for the standalone sampler kind of spectrum of things. But maybe. AI can help create new hardware. And yeah, maybe. Beats Platoon keeps talking about Machine Studio. It's not happening. It's not happening. Or maybe, maybe a new kind of DJ mixer that makes sense. I bought the Numark Scratch mixer, and that one's good. But something else. No, I'm just asking for an updated version of the C2. That's actually just the only thing I'm thinking about. It's so strange to me that Native Instruments made this great DJ mixer as a one-off, and then it didn't happen again. There's still a lot of people who want actual battle scratch DJ mixers, like with inputs and outputs that can do timecode and can do Serato and can do Tractor, and there's still a bunch of us who wants that. What did you look at down there? I don't have I don't have a Machine Studio. I don't have an updated version of the Machine Studio. I don't. I can't say everything about everything, but I can say that I don't have a Machine Studio. Not the old one, not a new one. I don't have it. Because it doesn't exist. I don't think it does. One more round in the chat room. There's a few people left, I think. Let me double check on that. Yeah, there are a few people left. I want your predictions. Stop messing around and talking about everything else in the chat room. For now, let's leave the chat room for just straight up predictions. Nothing else. Don't be as long-winded about it as I am. Just concrete, actually believable, or stuff you just hope to see. Predictions for NAMM 26. Under the table, Akai has an MPC 60 and an S950. I wish. I have an MPC 2000 XL right there. Haven't used it for a while. Benjamin Buttons adds this. I think loads of it will be motorized, automated, recallable analog hardware. That's concise. That's a prediction. Loads of it will be motorized, automated, recallable analog hardware. I don't, but if that was true, it would be kind of cool. Because the biggest problem with analog gear is the recallability. The fact that you just make your settings and then it is what it is. If you touch anything, it's going to be ruined, it's going to be different, and pretty much impossible to get it back to exactly the same state. So having everything motorized and recallable, yeah. It's not that it's totally new, it's been around before, but if that's kind of a trend, I would love it. I doubt that it's happening, but sure. Beats Platoon, DJing is the base of the maybe most popular music now. So DJ could be the main thing. Maybe not. To me, I'm not following that world as much as I should, but to me it kind of feels like the DJ world has stagnated. There's a bunch of different controllers that pretty much do the same thing. There's a bunch of improvements done in the stem separation parts of things, sure. But then it's just players, built-in effects and sliders and knobs, different kind of filters and EQs, sure. Stem separation and different ways of syncing one thing to the next. But that's pretty much what it is. So it's the same thing in the DJ realm. Someone should just invent something new and groundbreaking we haven't seen before that makes the entire DJ world just go upside down. I mean, the phase system for Scratch was kind of a new invention, and it has become somewhat of a standard, which is cool. I don't use phase myself, but I know a lot of people who do, and everyone says that it's great. But we need something new. A new form of technology for DJing that's actually groundbreaking and different. Beatmeasure says bigger Mini Freak. Yeah, me too. I think that's, if not now, let's be like this. If not now, sometime in the future, Arturia will for sure make a bigger version of the Mini Freak, or a Freak synth. Maxi Freak, Super Freak, whatever you want. It's gonna happen. Maybe not for NAMM, but it's gonna happen. I'm with you, 100%. Benjamin Bottom says there's loads of it coming out. Yeah, maybe it is, and I'm just too stupid to know. The motorized thing, recallability on analog gear. Dirty 1200 says, I think Roland will release a smaller TR1000 or an updated TR1000. Okay, that's interesting. The TR1000 is like the flagship drum machine that does everything, and I really want one. But a smaller version of that? Sure. Are we talking like IRA series size or TR6S size or MC707 size? But a version of the TR1000 with parts of that kind of technology and that functionality in a smaller form factor? Yeah, makes sense. Not yet though. I think that's coming, but later on, because the MC1000, the TR1000 is still too new for them to release something that could even almost compete with it. Roland released an updated version of the Phantom at a higher price. No, Roland releases an updated version of the Phantom at a higher price. Well, maybe they would. The Phantom is also one of those devices that it feels like, yeah, they could make versions of it. I'm with you. Kyle, thanks for the super chat. That's $4. Thank you. AI scratching? I don't know. Kyle got excited about Super Freak. Yeah. TR8 size. Okay, so that's your prediction. A TR8 sized TR1000. It's not a bad idea. But again, I don't think it's going to happen just yet. I think that's coming later on. And that's about what I got from you guys. Those are not bad predictions. A bigger Mini Freak, stuff that's recallable but still analog with motorized controls. Not a bad not a bad idea for the future as a trend. Sure, I can see that happening. Rockwell, $5 super chat. Thank you. Machine We talked about machine earlier in the stream, and machine is not going to happen. The best thing that could happen from Native Instruments about machine is still for them to just make some kind of announcement and say, hey, we now assigned 80 people to go all in on the machine and the future development. Please give us all feedback you want in this forum thread right now, and we're going to start working for real next week, and we're going to release a proper update that fixes everything about machine in 6 months. If they do that, that's good stuff. Techniques might show a new SL1210. Maybe they will. Maybe people will be excited. Maybe it's going to be too expensive. Beat Platoon says, last year NI in NAMM was about AI. Native Instruments? AI last year on NAMM? In that case, I must have missed it. I don't doubt that you're right, but I can't agree. I don't know. We talked about the Hydrosynth 2. We talked about the Circuit series. We talked about Erica synths briefly. We talked about Teenage Engineering, another version of the KO2. We talked about Nord briefly. ASM. Arturia Maxi Freak, or as I like to call it, Super Freak. Roland MC707. Scaled down TR1000. A bigger Electribe, or maybe a new Volca. Yamaha is hard to say anything about. Native Instruments, Elektron, and Akai. And also Moog. You know what I think would be kind of fun? Not that any music makes Moog make something bad, but a smaller form factor analog synth from Moog, more accessible from a price perspective. Analog, kind of trimmed down, not too complicated, not too advanced, but just great sound. Could see that happening. Think something like the Mini Freak. No, something like the Mini Brute. That kind of form factor, that kind of thing, but from Moog. Could happen. Pete KS, Rhodes. Well, Rhodes is funny because it feels like Rhodes are always working on new versions of the Rhodes. But being me, I use the Rhodes plugin, Rhodes own plugin over here, and it's so useful. It sounds good. It's the best kind of modulation or emulated version of a Rhodes piano I've ever heard. So that one does a lot of heavy lifting for me whenever I need Rhodes, and I think a lot of people use it. Getting a proper, real Rhodes piano is kind of a dream of mine, just because the sound of it and how classic it is. Yeah, getting a proper Rhodes piano would be such a dream, honestly. But even if Rhodes announced a new version of a Rhodes piano, it would be so expensive and so out of my league that it doesn't make sense. Buying something like that for someone like me is like throwing away money. Even though I would love it and I would use it a lot, I'm not good enough of a keyboard player to actually deserve a proper Rhodes. And I think that goes for a lot of people, considering how pricey they are. I could see myself buying a super expensive version of a Machine Studio standalone, or a really expensive version of a huge MPC, because I use it effectively and I use a lot of stuff in it. A proper Rhodes, oh, such a dream, but also totally unreasonable. Could there be another version of the Rhodes piano? Sure, could. It could. Yeah, the Yamaha Reface also has great Rhodes sounds. I know. It's crazy. That little form factor and that tiny of a price point, and then it sounds so good. It's almost too good to be true. But the Yamaha Reface CT, that Rhodes piano is fantastic. Benjamin Buttons. I once sat at a Rhodes that Stevie Wonder played the prior week. I sat there wishing I could play it. Yeah. Am I onto something about the Moog? I mean, I'm not talking about, again, I need to stress this. I'm not talking about a tiny, affordable Moog that doesn't really sound special and, I'm talking about a proper analog Moog that sounds like a Moog with the Moog oscillators and filters and everything that they're known for, maybe 2 of them, in a tiny form factor, solid, pure metal, and just a great synth, but small. 25 keys, 25 full-size keys, not like the micro, not like the mini brute, but full-size keys, but a small form factor, and just rock solid in terms of sound. Doesn't need to have a lot of built-in effects or too many like different envelopes or LFO. 2 LFOs, 1 envelope, and just the classic Moog sound in an affordable little thing. I guess a Moog Prodigy could be smaller. Which one is that? I keep confusing them. That one. Sure. Or maybe even yeah, that also needs to be said. That kind of angle to it. This is pretty much what I'm talking about. This is the subsequent 37. Yeah, something like that. But even smaller. 25 keys, that would be 12. Cut off right there, right? 25 keys, 2 octaves, and the same amount of controls and knobs, and a sound that breathes Moog. Made So Well says it would be bought. Yeah, it would. I think that would sell really well. But they would also have to be really careful to make sure that it's rock solid. It can't feel like, we got bought up by In Music and now we're making this affordable little crappy thing. It still needs to be premium. It could be somewhat expensive for the form factor and just great. Yeah, sub 37 is one of those things on my bucket list too, Kyle. Something about this, it's just so appealing. And that goes for many of these things. The Model D. Now I'm just fanboying. Now I'm just... This is just gear porn at this point. Imagine something like the matriarch. Imagine something like this. But 25 keys. Looks like an SE1. An SE2 is small. Sure. Yeah, I think if they play their cards right and make sure that it's rock solid and doesn't feel like a compromise, a smaller Moog would be awesome. And that would sell really well. Really well. That's one of my things. It's not a prediction for NAMM, but I think that would be so beneficial for producers in general. Getting access to the Moog sound and filter and everything. Hardware, analog, small, solid. Charles asks, are you getting the MPC XL? If the MPC XL is real and it comes out and it's good, of course I'm gonna get it. I'm that heavily invested in the whole MPC ecosystem, so if it's real and it comes out and it's going to be available, I'm just setting aside a whole chunk of cash to get it. For sure. Yeah, Matriarch has been on Made So Well's bucket list. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this. The Moog Messenger is the least expensive out of the Moog lineup, right? Not counting stuff like this, the Labyrinth and the Mother 32. If we're talking about synths with keyboards, the Grandmother is 1,200 right now. So the Messenger feels like they're taking a step towards becoming more accessible. I want something even smaller. How many keys is this? Do we need to count the keys or 32? Okay, that's 32 keys. So I'm talking about this, but different and smaller. Akai in 2025 NAMM was about NI collaboration. Maybe there could be more. I mean, honestly, I could see them just going crazier and crazier on the plugin thing. You know, collaborating with Roland Cloud and getting a bunch of Roland plugins and synthesizers in the MPC. Could happen. Who the fuck knows at this point? Or more Native Instruments plugins in the MPC. Could happen. Arturia plugins. Could happen. Spectrasonic stuff. I don't even know. To me, at least in my little bubble that I live in, it feels like Akai is pretty much taking over. Not necessarily in a bad way either, because they're making great stuff. If I were name someone who makes decent or great synth plugins or instrument plugins. If I were Spectrasonics is not right because that's a different kind of target group. Okay. If I was Rhodes and I have all the different hardware versions of the Rhodes piano, but I also have this really, really great Rhodes plugin, I would be 100% open to work with Akai to make a dedicated Akai version of the same plugin. 100%. I can't really see any negative sides of that, except from me maybe selling less of my plugins. But if it's been out for a few years, that could just bring me a bunch of stuff back, you know. So I could see anyone partnering with Akai and making more plugins and libraries and stuff. Anyone. If Akai made it so that the Q-Link knobs can shift the notes in the step sequencer, it's on like Donkey Kong. So you could move the notes in the step sequencer with the knobs. Yeah, that would make sense. Especially in the leak. In the leaked picture, the knobs are like that. So if you could have 16 notes on the knobs and move them like that, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Or on the MPCX SE, 4, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, moving the notes. Would make sense. That's a good idea. I can't wait to see what Slate shows with their VSX immersion ones, but with whatever else they've possibly been holding back. Yeah, this is something I'm not read up on at all. Slate VSX. Perfect mixes, less frustration. Am I supposed to understand what this is? Oh, it's like Sound ID, right? It's like a calibration kind of system. The immersion goes on a different model. So this is an older model. So it's a system that makes your mixing kind of situation flat on headphones, or is it the actual headphones? It's the actual headphones. Okay. Okay, this is this seems really cool, but it's not something I have. So on one hand, it looks like just a calibrating system, and on one hand, it looks like actual headphones. But no, this is a system. It's room simulation and it does immersion. Okay, I don't know anything about this. I'm gonna have to read up on this because it sounds cool. But with my kind of hearing loss, not sure it's worth it. If we're talking about like stereo field and stuff, it's not for me. Let's go back here. I can't wait to see what they are. I'm really feeling those micro synths from Behringer. You're really getting big sounds from such a small form factor. Yeah, I normally just avoid talking about Behringer because I'm a YouTuber and people listen and whatever. I can't deny the fact that Behringer makes stuff that's affordable, that serves a purpose for a certain audience. I can't deny that. Does it feel great for me as me to promote it? No. Let's leave that. Air plugins are great sounding, and they are in the MPCs. Yeah, they are. Many of the plugins in here are from Air. And I think Air makes good stuff, but they're not known to be on the highest level of stuff. Not that they're bad, but you know. Okay, so you can run this slate system in mono with the linear flat setting engaged. Sure, I understand what you're saying. It could be cool, but it seems like something that's honestly a little bit too expensive to get into because it does one job, even though it does it really well. Not sure what to think about it. Whoa, that's my desktop. You know what, guys? I had some ideas. You had some ideas. And I think we're going to have to wait and see. The NAMM Show starts in, what did I say, like 8 days? Yeah, it's 8 days from now. And I got a TikTok from my girlfriend. Cool. We're just going to have to wait and see at this point. I'm hoping for everything that I've already said. I can't repeat it as many times as I want. But just trying to think if there's anything I haven't, if I have some kind of hopes and dreams that I haven't talked about. We haven't talked about effect pedals. Because there are so many effect pedals. It's crazy. And the more I keep looking at them, I'm realizing that, yeah, I need a delay pedal. I do. And another form of compressor in pedal form. Yeah, I need that. And maybe just a simple straight up tremolo pedal. That would also be cool. You know, and then it just becomes, yeah, I'm a pedal guy. I have 2,000 pedals. So something brand new in pedal form is always interesting, but pedal manufacturers or pedal makers, designers are already doing so much stuff. So much stuff. I'm actually using my Poly and Mess. Yeah. Embarrassing. I mean, it's almost embarrassing how much I use it. For everything, it's on pretty much anything I play over here. I put it through the Mess to use a little bit of compression, maybe a little bit of reverb. You know, it's such a cool and powerful tool because it has 4 lanes of effects and so many great effects in it. Even though it's, you know, a multifunctional thing. I love it. Some sort of grain delay would be cool. Some sort of delay that does some type of granular stuff in the background. I used to do that a lot with Machine. Machine had a really cool grain delay inside of it that you could pitch up an octave and just mix it in just a little bit to get some shimmer and shine on pretty much anything. So even if you had a sample that's pretty dull and boring, add a little bit of shimmer from a granular delay and it just worked. Something like that in pedal form would be cool. And I'm sure it exists and I just don't know about it and I just haven't tried it and I don't have it. So it doesn't have to be a new product. If you choose one pedal for compression, tell us now because I want to buy one. You know what? Compressors is such a personal thing. And different compressors has different use cases. So depending on the job, depending on what you're trying to do, I have the Poly and Play. Poly and Press. That's a dedicated analog compressor pedal. A dedicated analog compressor in pedal form, I should say. To me, it's a great compressor, but maybe not if you want to add a little bit of, you know, saturation and get some stuff out of it. It's more of a transparent master compressor. So using that as a compressor on my entire mix bus just making a beat on the MPC, making a beat on the MPC, running it into the poly-end press, applying a little bit of compression to get the levels smooth out, to get the levels too smooth out. It's fantastic for that. If you want to put like a massive compressor that's not transparent and has some personality to it, that's not the right one. So it all depends on the job. Compression is such a personal, such a subjective thing. I love that one, but not for all jobs, you know. Poly-end press. I like that one, but more for entire mixes and for mastering purposes than anything else. Still looking for some hardware to make my beats sound more analog. It's like some investigation. Too many options and so on. Sure, I know what you're saying. Getting some sort of rack-mounted piece of kit with tubes, like a tube preamp in rack form, is a really effective way to get some natural distortion, some more analog feel inside of there. Which one you want to go for that's a jungle. There's so many different types of tubes and so many different types of stuff, but a tube amp is a great start. A great start, I think. So I think that's it. I sat quiet for 30 seconds without even noticing. Which means it's time to go. It's time to wrap this one up. We have been talking about a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors, a lot of hopes and dreams and wishes for NAMM 26. Without really getting into the microphones or the hardware, like the rack-mounted stuff, you know, stuff for live purposes, audio interfaces, everything else that's possible. Synths, drum machines, and groove boxes is kind of my main interest, and we have talked about a few of them. And also effect units to some extent. How does this work? Do you run the finished project through the tube and record it again? Yeah, that's basically what you do. Different ways. There are different ways of doing it. So maybe you want some of that analog warmth from the tubes on your drums. Then you just solo the drums, send it out to the unit, and then back into your sampler, your DAW, whatever you use, as a send-return kind of chain, or as an actual just output and then input, whatever you want. You can do that with individual tracks or with the entire mix, depending on what you're looking for. That's my answer. Getting some kind of tube amp is a great start because you can use it in a few different ways. If you choose to do something like taking like a drum track, a drum loop, putting it into a tube, yeah, this example is kind of good. If it's an actual loop that you're going to use as a loop, you can just run that loop into your tube preamp and back in again. And changing the volume on the preamp, getting another version. Changing the volume again, getting another version with more or less of the tube applied. Then you have multiple versions. Pick one that suits the project best. You know, because depending on how hard you drive the actual preamp, you're getting different amounts of the tube sound signature in there. So that's one solution. Dirty 1200 also says a great thing about that. That's pretty much the only use case, the only thing I use this one for, my reel-to-reel tape recorder. The same way, if I want some of that kind of flavor on something, I'm just able to route the signal into the tape recorder, record something, rewind, play it, and record it back. And then I have the same signal, but with that type of sound. And the same thing goes for this one. Depending on the speed of the tape, depending on the amplitude and the volume settings, the gain and whatever, the input signal and the output signal, I'm getting different sound signatures, which is cool. It takes a lot of time compared to just slapping on some kind of plugin and just playing around with the volumes and the values. Adding tape saturation from tape is kind of cool. Getting a little bit of warmth, cutting back some of the frequencies and whatever. You can do that with a reel-to-reel tape recorder. You can do it with a cassette player. You can do it with a Porter Studio. Whatever that has its own sound. It just takes a lot of time. I got it. I should have known this by now after all those years, but I've never gotten into the technical aspects. I'm kind of slow when it comes to those things. But that's fine. That's not for everyone because it's a troublesome kind of process that takes time. But many samplers and maybe many audio interfaces has dedicated returns and sends. So you can work on something and just pick one of the tracks, send it out to a send signal, getting it back on the return signal, and it pretty much just replaces the original thing. Chris52, fun stream, but kept laughing at how crazy a lot of the hardware names are and the models with what seems like random numbers to me. But seems like there's a lot of stuff that could be coming. Yeah, for sure, man. There's a lot of stuff that could be coming, and since you're not that into music gear and whatever, I guess it sounds crazy. Arturia Micro Freak, the Roland SP404, the MV8000, TR1000. Everything has names and numbers in a way that's really confusing. And it's even worse for computer stuff, right? You can buy a computer monitor that's called whatever XTVW said 4950. And that's just what it is. I think it's time to go for real. I've said it 3 times now, I think. But it's time to check out and say goodnight to everyone. Thanks a lot for the submissions in here and adding to the conversation. I think the most exciting thing is what we all kind of know the most about, which is the MPC XL. That's supposed to be coming out, according to the leaks at least. But there's a lot of cool stuff too. Korg Phase 8. That's fun. See whatever Elektron does with the Tonework ecosystem. It's cool. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Time to leave, and next week we're gonna be back on a live stream doing a beat review. I'm not gonna have the time to make samples for that session, so that's gonna be an open session with anything, as always. But I'm gonna get into making samples for this kind of challenge in the future. I've said it, and it's true. I keep pointing towards that camera, and you guys are over there. Me being a bad live streamer. Next week, a normal beat review episode. It's going to be nice. Thanks a lot.